Hello, Internet. Welcome back to QGP. This is our annual podcast where we discuss the best games. You know, a lot has happened this year. There have been some bummers. There have been some triumphs. But today we're going to discuss the triumphs. Or rather, I'm specifically going to discuss the handful of games that I actually played. And we're going to have a discussion about it.
We're going to do basically a top 10, right? Top 9 for you?
Top 9 for me, top 10 for you.
Yeah.
I was telling Zach that the gulf between the number of games that we played is probably in favor of Zach. I have 9 games on my list.
I think I hit 30 this year.
Golly, wow.
I mean, some of those are smaller indie games, but...
So if anybody has honorable mentions, then it's definitely you. I only have a total of 9.
Well, I mean, you know, Charles didn't want to add Mario Kart Tour, so...
It doesn't count. It's not a game.
Well, so what does it qualify as?
It is an idle game.
That's actually not... That's not a bad description. It
It's
basically plays itself already. All right,
it's an idle game with loot boxes and gambling mechanics.
And don't forget, like, the gold pass that you have to pay monthly for.
Yes,
it is 200cc.
Yes, it is an idle game with a subscription service and loot boxes.
Wait, did you play? I probably should have asked this beforehand. Dr. Mario World.
Yes, I did.
Did you actually like that one?
I did actually like that one. I thought that one was a lot of fun.
I thought it was pretty good.
I didn't put it on my list though.
Okay, it's not good enough to to make that number 10 spot.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, so
it was good, but it wasn't that good.
Should I just go through my honorable mentions? I guess.
Yeah.
So, like, these are the games that I really, really enjoyed, but they were just games that I felt were better. So, Yoshi's Crafted World, which you actually played some of as well.
Yes. The thing, there were a couple of games that came out that I played a little bit of, but I didn't include on the list because I didn't play enough of them to really form a solid opinion about.
Yeah.
So
you did get far enough to hear how bad the soundtrack was, though.
Yeah, the soundtrack was kind of a clunker, which is weird because they kind of went with the same similar aesthetic that they had for Woolly World.
Yeah, well, it's the same. They pulled a Yoshi story because it's the exact same track played over every level, just remixed for that theme. If you actually listen to it, they are all based on that same one theme. So.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, there was just too much repetition in that too. It was basically like the Donkey Kong 64 of 2D platformers, but yeah, they kept making you replay like the same levels to get little collectibles, and you couldn't get them all in one run for some reason. But it really was a fun game. I know I'm putting it down. I got to stop focusing on the negative. The level design was fantastic.
Yeah, this is meant to be a celebration of gaming.
Yes. I'm sorry, I'm an open pessimist. So my next game was Team Sonic Racing, which you also played some of, right?
Yes, that was a lot of fun.
I was not expecting to like it that much.
I do wish I could have sunk more time into it. I feel like it was the sort of thing that could provide a lot of entertainment for me personally. I tend to find, I enjoy games that have a significant amount of single player content just because I don't often have a lot of people that I can play stuff with. So
right. I mean, it's got a story mode. Mm-hmm. It's not like the best written story ever, but it's better than Mario Kart 8. So
I mean, like Crash Team Racing barely has a story at all, but it's still like one of my favorite adventure racing games.
Right. My Friend Pedro.
Yes, I did also play a little bit of that one.
The game is really fun. The only thing that kind of held it back for me was the controls are a little bit clunky. But it's one of those games, like, once I finished it, I was kind of struggling through the whole game. And then by the time I got to the end, I was actually getting pretty good. So I immediately went back and played through it again. And it was way more fun the second time. So, Cadence of Hyrule was my next honorable mention.
Ooh.
Did you play that one?
I did play that one.
Okay.
I did not complete it, but I played a significant amount of it.
Okay, I didn't finish it either, so... I played a lot, but...
Yeah, I really enjoyed Cadence of Hyrule. It was... It follows in the same mechanics of Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Yeah, which I actually played on your laptop for the first time, like a few years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a rhythm-based roguelike game where you have to move across tiles to the beat of the song. And this one takes place in the Kingdom of Hyrule. You get to play as Cadence or Link or Zelda. They each get their own powers and abilities that help you explore the world and uncover secrets. And it's, I believe, every new game randomizes the layout of the world?
Yes, and the dungeons are random every single time. So if you die in one, then it randomizes it, the caves and stuff. So I'm not huge into roguelikes usually, but this is a very good one. So
well, here's the thing: the music slaps. It's very good, and it feels very good to hit the beats and to chain your movements in time with the beat to combo enemies. Just feels very satisfying, and I think I would put that one pretty high up on my list. I feel.
Yeah, I'm I'm waiting to see where that one lands. I figured that would be one on your list as well. It almost was on mine again, but there are just other games I liked more. So, God Eater 3, I know you played the demo of that one and weren't the biggest fan, but
yeah, tell me about God Eater 3 because I still don't understand it.
Well, it's just like it's basically a faster paced Monster Hunter, but it kind of revolves around the idea of taking bites out of your enemy to power up. So, like, depending on how long you hold the bite, you get, like, more power, more time to level up your attacks, so...
Okay, so...
It's just a fun, grindy action RPG, I guess.
So you literally eat gods.
Right.
Is as a central mechanic.
Right.
Okay, that's actually interesting. If I had known that it involved eating, I probably would have stuck with it.
Wait, how far... I mean, that's, like... in the tutorial,
Here's the thing, the tutorial did a very bad job of explaining what I was supposed to do or how to even control anything. Sure. So I couldn't even figure out what I was doing or how.
See, I played the first God Eater, and I wasn't a big fan of that one, but that actually kind of gave me an edge for what I was supposed to be doing. Yeah, you're right, that tutorial was not very good. And that's the same tutorial that's in the game, unfortunately.
Okay. I might have to watch somebody play that before I get it, before it clicks.
Sure. Yeah, the story is not fantastic either, but that's not why anyone goes into games like this. But Creature in the Well would be my next one.
Okay, that's it's
like the
top-down ping
dungeon
pong.
Crawling.
Or not.
Yeah, kind of pinball-esque.
Pinball,
game.
Sorry.
It does a really good job with storytelling too. It's one of those games where, you like complete a boss. There's not a lot of explanation. There's not a lot of characters to run into, but you kind of uncover stuff through data logs. Mm-hmm. So it's totally skippable once you've actually finished the game if you want. You don't have to keep going back and reading everything, but it's there if you want it. It's kind of a Metroid Prime style storytelling.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I've wanted to play that one. If I ever get the chance, I'll have to snag that game.
Yeah, the controls are amazing too. That's part of what makes it so addictive. It's just one of those games that feels good to be playing. So there aren't even like really conventional enemies in this game. It's just all bumpers, and like certain bumpers that will send your ball back in a faster manner that will hurt you if it hits you. So it's all about like getting the rhythm of dodging, catching balls, and then shooting them back at targets. So it gets pretty intense by the end of the game, but yeah, it's a fun game.
It looks very good. I very much dig the art style and the mystery of it all. It's very interesting. So that's one that I'm definitely hoping to play at some point.
Cool.
Probably won't be on my 2020 list of games.
And my final honorable mention is Shovel Knight King of Cards, which just came out like a couple weeks ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which I had to play on my Wii U because I'm too cheap to rebuy it.
Oh, I still need to download it on my 3DS.
Yeah, I would say, in terms of like the core platforming gameplay, it's every bit as good as the original Shovel Knight. I would say I liked Spectre of Torment a little better. But the reason it didn't make my top 10 is that it does have forced like card mechanics, which doesn't sound awful, but you have to go to like certain taverns, and then you have to work your way up to like the boss of that tavern by playing cards. And the game of cards isn't very interesting, and it's very RNG heavy. So it starts off like way too easy, and then I just kind of kept getting really bad luck, and you keep losing cards every time you lose a game. So it kind of broke up the pacing a little too much for my tastes, but definitely worth playing though. The core platforming gameplay is incredible. It plays like Wario Land but fun.
Ooh, that sounds like a pretty hot take.
I've never liked Wario Land. I'm sorry to any Wario Land fans out there.
Golly. I'll be honest, I haven't played too many Wario Land games, although I've heard that they're very well received by their fans.
Yes, I'm not one of those. But that's it for my honorable mentions.
Alrighty. Well, I haven't sorted my list of games into any sort of rank.
Okay.
They are written down more or less in the order that they released.
Okay. I did do mine in rank, but I probably revised it about 12, 13 times.
Oof. So I'm going to... I guess I'm just going to go from top to bottom. We could probably alternate.
Okay.
I'm sure that you and I probably have matching picks.
There's going to be some, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then we could probably have a discussion at the end about what we would rank as the penultimate.
Okay.
What defines this year in terms of gaming for us. So I have at the top of my list Resident Evil 2 Remake.
A very good game.
It is a solid game. So I have never played any of the classic Resident Evil games. I played the first Silent Hill game, and that's it. That doesn't really count, but it's usually when you think of PS1 era horrors, you think of Resident Evil and you think of Silent Hill. Mm-hmm. And I'd only played Silent Hill. I think I had tried to play a ROM of Resident Evil 2, and I had never played a game that had tank controls, so I couldn't figure it out, and I stopped playing.
They definitely take a bit to get used to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be patient.
But this came out towards the beginning of the year. I actually got it a few weeks ago.
Okay.
It takes place in the same environment. It's basically the same game, but redesigned for a modern audience with modern gameplay mechanics in place. So it is a third-person shooter. You play as Leon or Claire, investigating the Raccoon City Police Department. There's been this big outbreak of the zombie virus, I think the G virus.
Yeah.
Which it's turning everybody into zombies, and you have to try and figure out what's going on and how do I stop this. It is very, very well made. Very spooky. The sound design is incredible.
Oh, it is. I can't believe that didn't win at the Game Awards.
No, I think it was nominated.
It was, but Call of Duty won, and that's just disgusting.
General noises of disgust.
Yeah. The sounds of Mr. X going through halls is just the stuff of nightmares.
Oh yes, because you can. The game has it's incredible because no matter where you are, it has like this 3D binaural audio processing system. So if you've got some headphones in, which I think is the recommended way of playing,
There's no other way of playing.
you can hear this basically this massive. He's like 7-8 feet tall.
Yes.
Bad guy in a trench coat with a fedora. He's like this gray monster, just will like fast walk all over the place after you relentlessly.
Yeah, and
you
unlike the original. Oh, sorry, sorry, I thought you were done.
Well, I'll finish real quick and then you can say your thing. You can hear him like walking around upstairs looking for you. And it's so you have to try and like be careful about making too much noise, because then he'll kind of like center in on your location. And it just makes for like a really tense, like kind of cat and mouse style of gameplay. And I found it really enjoyable, very thrilling.
Yeah. All I was going to say was that unlike the original game where he would like despawn and respawn in random areas, in this game he is always somewhere on the map. Even if that part of the map has despawned, if you're not currently in it, he will walk out in the void. There will be like a placeholder model that is always on the prowl for your character.
I heard. I actually looked into that because I wanted to find out more about how Mr. X works, and apparently, he doesn't necessarily cheat, but when rooms despawn, he just walked very quickly through them.
Yeah.
To get back to you, and he doesn't always know where you are, but he does make guesses based on your actions. So if you like, based on how you're moving, or how you're interacting, like if you're running, then it's easier for him to decide where you are. Or if you're engaging with enemies, then you're bringing a lot of attention to yourself, and
right.
That kind of definitively, you could be swarmed by a bunch of zombies and you hear him like thumping towards you. So I thought that was a lot of fun. It was. I actually went back and I watched a long play of the original on PS1, and the voice acting is considerably better, but the interactions are just as cheesy.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's part of the charm of Resident Evil. I think you asked me that when you were playing through Revelations. You're like, is it supposed to be this cheesy? It's like, yes. that is the essence of Resident Evil.
It's not a Resident Evil game if they're not just B horror movie
right
lines throughout the whole thing. So that's kind of what I thought of Resident Evil 2. I thought it was an extremely good game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm still working through the B plots of Claire and Leon.
Okay.
I've done both of the A plots, but I thought it was fantastic, and I could see myself playing this several times over, because I played a lot of the Evil Within again and again and again. It's just like a fun kind of roller coaster ride of a horror thriller, and I could see myself doing this the same with Resident Evil 2. Yeah. What did you think?
Well, how about we get to that when it appears on my list, because it's going to appear on my list somewhere.
All right.
My number 10 game was Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I don't know if you got a chance to get around to playing that one.
No.
Okay. Well, if you like Symphony of the Night, it's that but modernized. Essentially. This is like probably the best crowdfunded game I've ever played, and I was not expecting it to be good. And it still isn't if you're playing it on Switch, so just as a heads up, don't play it on Switch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard the Switch had a lot of problems even maintaining a solid 30.
Yeah, in addition to having significantly worse textures, a lower resolution, and input lag. So there's just no reason to get the Switch version.
That's not input lag, especially, is something that you don't want in a action platformer.
Right. I don't really have a whole lot to say. It's just I've missed Castlevania and it's back. So it may not be called it, but there's enemies and references to Castlevania. Like, this just is Castlevania.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it wasn't ever gone. So.
I mean, it's not like you can really trademark, Dracula.
Right.
Or a freaking Medusa head. It's like these are iconic characters and enemies but iconic in the sense that they have existed throughout culture for millennia.
Right. Yeah, so they redid the entire graphics, like, for all of the levels in the game right before the game released, which is very cool because it was really ugly before that. It's kind of an eerie, it's eerie looking, but it's still pretty beautiful, I would say. Except for the character models, they still look pretty bad, in my opinion. There's kind of like a weird haze around them, like they're kind of trying to go for a cell shaded look, but not quite. But yeah. Anyway, other than that, though, that's it's very good. I don't know what else to say about it. It's it's so similar to other Castlevania games. There's just a lot more weapons. I guess that's another bonus in this one. There's just so many different types of weapons and ways to play this game.
Yeah, that's another one I'm definitely gonna have to pick up at some point. Probably on PC.
Yeah. I would recommend that version over the Switch.
Unless next year Nintendo comes out with the Switch Pro, which we all know they're going to do.
It's going to happen.
And they release an update that makes it, work better.
Yeah. The good version.
Yeah, the good version.
So what's your next game?
So the next game I have, and I'm not sure if you actually would have heard of this one. So it's called Hypnospace Outlaw.
I have not.
Okay, so imagine the internet in the 90s.
Sure.
Angel Fire, GeoCities. You've got those crusty GIFs.
Yeah.
You have like really, really funky HTML layouts. The concept is Hypnospace or HypnoS, as the operating system is called, is a internet browser that you can use in your sleep. You put on this headband and you're able to access the internet in your sleep. And so there's this whole community. There are all these websites and links that you can go to. As the player character, you are on the enforcement team for HypnoS. Basically, your job is you're given these emails with tasks. You have to scour the internet looking for things like content infringement or harmful content, harassment, and like you have to try and find some credit scams and things like that. You scour the internet, and every time you find one of these and ban it, then you get paid, and you can use that to buy different like backgrounds or like toys for your little desktop.
I think I have heard of this. This is sounding very familiar.
It is charming as heck. It is so funny in its sincerity because it is.
Are there like fake ads and stuff? You said?
Yeah,
okay.
there are. It feels like exactly like what the internet was like at that period of time. They're like MIDI files that you can download and listen to.
Okay.
There's this guy called the Chowder Man who does like all these music tracks and whatnot, and he's just like very, very funny. He's actually played by on YouTube. It's called Hot Dad. Plays the role of Chowder Man in this game. So like there are like a couple of videos of him in there. And as you're going, you're unraveling, like there's this story that you're unraveling. And it's so charming, it's so funny, and it's so heartfelt, and I had a blast with it. I would absolutely recommend playing this. It can be a little frustrating trying to organize everything because it is, I will say, it is the 90s era of internet to a fault. So like organizing your windows and everything in a way to where you can see everything that you need to see can be a little frustrating. But in a manner of speaking, I would say that almost works towards it, ultimately. I mean, I'm trying to think of like how I want to say this. I just find the whole thing very the thing as a whole works very well together.
Okay.
And I would recommend, even if you can't stomach playing it, you should at least watch somebody play it because it is hysterical.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have heard of this one. It's sounding very familiar.
Yeah, I would. That's for Windows and Macintosh. I don't know if it's available for Linux.
Okay.
But it's yeah, and the music is very good as well. It's very very funny, very clunky, and just I don't know how many more times I can say that it's hilarious before I sound like a broken record. So that's the second one on my list. What do you have next?
Okay, cool. And that's not an Epic Store exclusive, right?
I don't think so, no. It is on Steam. It is also on itch.io. I would recommend personally getting it from itch, just because more money goes towards the developers.
Okay.
From that.
Sounds good. My next game is Monster Hunter World Iceborne. So this is technically an expansion, but it's also like essentially a whole new game added on to Monster Hunter World. It's got a bunch of new monsters, a bunch of returning ones from past games, and it also remixes all of the existing monsters with new moves or like some new hook that makes them different. And they also give every weapon class in the game a brand new attack, as well as a clutch claw, which allows you to jump onto the backs of enemies. You can run them into the side of walls if you get onto their heads. So there's kind of like you can kind of crawl on them as long as they're not enraged. So there's kind of a Shadow of the Colossus, I guess.
Okay, interesting.
Esque mode to it.
Now, is this an entirely new game, or is this DLC to the original?
Like I said, it's technically DLC to the original. But
okay.
The Game Awards is counting as it a full new game, so I thought, why not?
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Yeah. So it's more
Okay.
Monster Hunter, but I really don't ever want to see the clutch claw go away. More mobility and options for attacking are always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I haven't played too terribly much Monster Hunter myself, but the one thing I've noticed is that motion and mobility is very much a big thing about how you move around the world and setting up things is very important. So I can easily see them keeping something like that in for future installments. And if they don't, I feel like that would be a wasted opportunity.
yeah, because like the older games, I mean that's where Dark Souls combat basically comes from. Is the older Monster Hunter games. They were a lot stiffer, a lot more clunky, and over the years they've added more things like ledge jumping, the ability to mount monsters in the back and stab them and try and like knock them down, and so this just kind of feels like the next evolution of that.
Neat.
So I mean, you can't really play the game until you've finished Monster Hunter World. So that's like a good 60 plus hours right there.
Oof.
But then this game itself is probably about 40 to 50 hours long.
Okay, so that's a pretty sizable content pack right there.
And they're still adding to it, so there's still new monsters being added.
Oh golly, wow.
It is $40, but it's basically you're basically getting a whole nother Monster Hunter game out of it.
Okay, very cool. That's definitely one that I'll have to check out at some point as well.
So what's your next game?
So we already talked a little bit about this. It's Cadence of Hyrule.
Oh yes.
I don't know what else we can really say about it. It's a rhythm-based roguelike game. You hop around the Kingdom of Hyrule. It kind of randomizes things a little bit on each run, and you're trying to defeat Octavio, I think is his name.
I believe so. I played it back in June, so.
You have to collect the 4 instruments of power or something to enter the castle and fight him. And it's just a lot of fun. Movement in that game just feels very satisfying. Hopping to the beat, and it's all the characters look very cute. It's a much cleaner design than Necrodancer, just because it's not strictly pixel art. I would say it's the difference between like 8 and 16-bit in terms of graphical fidelity.
And they had a little bit more budget from Nintendo too, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Which, can we talk about that, actually?
Sure.
The fact that Nintendo partnered with an indie developer to make a game with their IP is fascinating. And I'm excited to see like what other stuff that they would do with other developers.
Yeah, I forget which developer it was, but one of them was kind of tweeting at Nintendo. They had like a prototype of a Zelda 2 remake, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to see that. As one of Zelda 2's like 10 fans. Yeah, I would love to see one with like better controls, maybe a little less impossible in some ways. Just tone down the speed of some of the enemies, especially in like Death Mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I realized I said, let's talk about that, and I didn't really have much to follow that up with.
Okay.
But I do think that it is very, very interesting and promising, the opportunity that Nintendo has given this particular set of developers, and the potential that it establishes for future developers. You know, there's a possibility that your next big idea could be directly funded by Nintendo.
Right. That's pretty amazing. My number 8 is Super Mario Maker 2.
Oh, well, guess what? That's my number 4.
Really?
Yeah, that's the next one on my list.
So we'll just take them both out right now.
All right.
So you didn't have a Wii U, and you only played a little bit of the original. So what were your thoughts going into this one?
I was very excited because there were a lot of things that I wanted to do when I came over to your house, and I was planning all of these things that I wanted to do. I wanted to make a ghost house.
Right.
And I had a lot of these different mechanics that I wanted to do, and I was upset because there were a lot of the tools that I wanted were not there.
Right, including the ghost doors, which still aren't there.
The ghost doors, the poles, and the hideaway walls, and a lot of that stuff still isn't there yet. But they've added a lot. They've added things like slopes. They've added a lot of different enemies and items and blocks, and it's basically just like they could have just kept adding more and more to the original Super Mario Maker, but I think having a full-on sequel that has almost, I think there are a couple of things that didn't make it into Super Mario Maker 2 that were in the first game, but for the most part,
the skinny shroom and all of the mystery mushrooms, for one.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a couple.
I think there were a couple,
but
yeah, I think there were a couple other like blocks and tools and whatnot that didn't make it over.
Yeah.
However, for the most part, it's the first game and then a whole bunch more. Plus, they also added the Mario 3D World style, which is...
That's very cool.
It's a lot of fun. It doesn't translate over to the other styles,
right?
The same way that the other ones do. Like if you make something in the Mario 1 style, then you can swap over to Mario 3, and the blocks will be the same, but the mechanics might be a little bit different. This is its own sort of set of tools.
Yeah, it's like under special themes, isn't it? It has its own category.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, it's in its own category, and I think it's the only one in its category, which could mean that we might potentially get, I don't know,
Another
Mario
one?
2? Mario 2 Maker? Anyone?
Mario
Anyone? Mario Maker 2 too? 22. But no, it pulls from the Super Mario 3D World sort of style. Things are a little bit bigger, but you have things like Mario can climb trees. He has the cat suit, so he can climb up walls for a little bit. and there's Skip Squeaks and a bunch of other monsters and mechanics. There's the builder's hammer, which lets you create blocks and destroy other blocks, so you can kind of wreck shop with that.
Yep.
And it's just a lot of fun. They've added
Well, they added the Link costume most recently, which is very cool.
I haven't had a chance to play that one.
Oh, really?
Actually, yeah. What do you think of that?
It's cooler than I thought it would be. Just like because there's so many different options, like the bombs. I feel like this is going to continue to expand over time with people coming up with new exploits and new challenges based on these abilities. But it's pretty crazy. I thought it was just going to be like, oh, they're going to introduce the mystery mushroom costumes one at a time, but they're actually fleshing them out, and now I really want like a Samus costume complete with missiles and bombs and.
Ooh.
What if we get a Kirby? That would like break the game.
That would be so much fun, though.
It would.
Bring back these iconic, low bit characters, and let us make Mario levels with them.
No, talk about breaking the game. What if they added Sonic?
That would. Well, I mean, they've got slopes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They'd have to add like a special loop-de-loop or something.
Mm-hmm.
But.
I think I've seen a couple of custom stages where people have done a bunch of like programming trickery, because there's actually like an insane amount of programming logic that you can implement in this game.
Yeah.
But people have used that to create things like a makeshift Sonic loop-de-loop.
I have not seen that.
It's. I was about to go into this, but I didn't want to, just keep talking. The multiplayer aspect of this, both the cooperative, well, the actual multiplayer part is still a little bit. The online multiplayer isn't very good. Yeah. I don't think.
Well, we got to talk about how they screwed it up at launch, though, because I don't want to give them a free pass. They did finally add the ability to play any level online instantly with your friends locally, but that was totally missing. You had to go in and download and then go to a separate like core spot thing and play them. So I think they just needed more time with this game. I would have waited another month or two, but the multiplayer is better, but it's still like the online multiplayer is better, but it's still could use some work. But
it's still Nintendo Online,
right? But the local stuff is a lot of fun. Oh, you were saying something.
I just realized what my number 10 is.
Oh.
On my list.
Oh.
And we'll get to that.
Okay, yeah, because I was gonna have to do 2 in a row anyways, I guess. I guess the only reason it was lower on my list, it's only number 8, would be just because I played the first one. This one doesn't feel special to me, and I think it is because I put so many hours into the original that like there's so much new stuff that makes this game better, but like that idea has kind of already been used, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I will say they did a phenomenal thing, which is the first game had it was very, to my understanding, because I didn't have it, but to my understanding, it was all too easy to end up you start 100 Mario mode, and you can end up with these stages that are impossible to clear.
Yeah, you could skip them, I believe.
But what they've done in Mario Maker 2 is they've made it so that you can give a level a heart. You can say you did like a level or you didn't like a level.
Right.
And so like these higher rated levels will kind of float to the top, and ones that aren't as good, that are kind of like cheap or whatever will sink to the bottom, so they don't show up as often. And also they've separated things into different categories of stages. So it's more likely to find you're more likely to find easier stages if you pick easy, and more difficult, harder stages if you specifically select that type. There are tags associated with levels, so you can say like you want an auto scroller, multiplayer focused, a puzzle based level. So it's a lot easier to find a specific type of stage that you want to play, and just the actual, like, even if you aren't particularly creative, you can still download and enjoy these stages, and they've just added a lot more curation tools. I was trying to think of the way to say it. They've added a lot more tools for to curate the content that you want.
Yeah, yeah, that was very much missing in the original game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they've made a lot of changes. Again, it's just like the magic is it's like playing Super Mario Galaxy 2 after playing the first one. Like, it's not any less good, and in some ways it is better, but like that initial magic, the charm of the original idea, is kind of not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, arguably, this is kind of an off-topic thing. Arguably, Mario Galaxy 2 is a better game mechanically than the original.
Sure.
And I feel like in a lot of ways, Mario Maker 2 kind of mirrors that.
Right. That's kind of the point I was trying to make.
Yeah. So, yeah, all around, Super Mario Maker 2 Game of the Year. I think we can all agree.
Well, I might disagree with that one.
No. Okay, so what do we have next?
We both. Wait, I went and you. Okay, so it's back to me because we both picked the same one as the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 7 is Yooka-Laylee in the Impossible Lair.
Yes, I really, really wanted to play this one, but I haven't had the funds. So Please tell me all about it.
Yeah, this game came out of nowhere. I remember seeing the initial trailer for it and thinking oh boy, another Yooka-Laylee game. Like, their whole thing was going 3D. That was their big thing, bringing back the classic 3D platformers, and then they gave up after one game. But I've never been so happy for them to give up after one game. This, honestly, I feel like with more funding, this could have been as good or better than Tropical Freeze. I'm just putting it out
Interesting.
there. I think budget was the one thing that held this game back from being a near perfect 2D platformer in my eyes. There's a lot of reused themes and whatnot, but the way, well, I mean, you played a little bit of it. The way they reuse themes with reuse levels by adding overworld. I guess I didn't explain that, but you'll be seeing footage of it. I'm so terrible at describing games. There's a whole overworld, and every level appears as a book on that overworld, and you can do some certain things in the overworld that affects the environment within the book. So, they do reuse almost every level twice, but they feel completely different, and they have completely different soundtracks.
Right. So, for example, I think there's one that is near, a beach, and you can enter the book, when the tide is low, and it's a normal level, or you can enter the book while the water washes over it,
right?
And then the whole level is underwater.
That's a better explanation than what I did. And
it completely changes. I've seen a couple other people talk about it, and I've watched some videos. But these things change the entire context of the level. It's it may be the same stage, but it's changed in such a drastically different way that it feels different.
Right. And the one final thing that kind of puts this above Retro's Donkey Kong Country games in this aspect would be controls. They feel so similar to the Super Nintendo games with the kind of roll and momentum, being able to jump out of a roll. That was something that Retro Studios never quite got right. So, the controls feel so good. It just feels like coming back to a Super Nintendo era game, but with, Tropical Freeze modern graphics.
You could say, this legitimately feels like it was made by the people that made the original Donkey Kong Country.
And also inspired by the people who then continued the series. It feels like a mix of their, original Donkey Kong Country idea with Retro Studios era.
Yeah. It honestly, it makes me sort of wonder what would have happened if they went into making the original Yooka-Laylee from that same perspective. Looking at what they did originally, but then also looking at what had been done since then.
Right.
And I feel like they looked too hard at it from the past rather than also looking at what had come after.
Right. They kind of took the things I liked least about Banjo-Tooie, and then they like amplified those.
Yeah,
But
no, I'm not going to disagree with that.
wow, we're already at like 47 minutes, so we should probably get through these a little quicker.
We're allowed to go a little bit long with this one because this is our game of the year edition. This is our Goaty edition
of our podcast that hasn't been a thing since in 2.5 years, but
yeah, we're allowed to come back with a very long and loud bang.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and go next then. Sure. So next one on my list, and remember these are just listed in chronological order, more or less.
Right.
I've got Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening.
I did not play this one yet. I'm still going to.
So this was a remake of the Game Boy Legend of Zelda game Link's Awakening, and the premise is you're Link, you're on a boat, there's a storm, boat crashes, and you wake up on this island. And you have to journey around the island, collecting instruments so that you can awaken the wind fish. And something will happen.
I mean, it's a spoiler from a game from 1993. I feel like everyone who might care has already played it, or is just not going to play it at this point.
Right. It feels like it is an extraordinarily faithful remake to the original. And I know a lot of the times, like, you hear that and you can think like, oh, well, that means that it gets, it has all of its trappings, and like, it really doesn't. Like the level design and everything is the same, but like they've modernized it. Like Link controls like very well.
I was going to ask about the controls. It looks a little, I don't know, like stuttery almost. Like the way Link moves, it feels very rigid.
It feels a lot better than it looks. Okay. I will say
it does not look fun to play, but
Link kind of he doesn't like smoothly turn. He sort of snaps to the 8 compass directions.
Yeah.
But it's exactly like it would play if you were playing it on the Game Boy.
Okay.
He moves exactly the same way because you could move in 8 directions on the Game Boy.
Right.
So they kept that faithful, and I can understand why they did that. The game itself has like a very toy-like quality to it in terms of appearance, and also just kind of like the way that it all works together. All the characters have this like, they're very like small, kind of like little miniature, like the I don't know, like the Fisher-Price like little people kind of thing.
Yeah.
They have like a sort of like plasticky quality to them. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. So I mean, I don't really have too much to say about that. It's a however many years old game at this point that they put a lot of spit and shine on and made it new again. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a good. It still holds up. It absolutely still holds up.
Okay. Because I mean, that is like one of my favorite 2D Zelda games of all time. So.
Yeah, I would. If you already liked it, then you'll probably like the remake as well.
Okay.